Hey guys, Coach Steven here, SLG Fitness, and we're back today with some glutes anatomy and function. So, this might look a little familiar from our hamstring video, but this also will show the glutes. You see here we have our glute complex, we have our glute max and our glute medius, which covers this outer portion of your glutes. Now deep inside of that we have our glute minimus, which runs from the outside of this hip all the way up here to the hip bone. So we have our glute max, our glute medius, and then our glute minimus, which runs under that medius. And they all attach down here on the femur. So what are some actions? Actions of the glute max, which is the large portion of the muscle, is hip extension, hip external rotation, knee lateral rotation. We have pelvic backward rotation, pelvic medial rotation, and pelvic lateral flexion. Now those are a lot of actions for that muscle. Glute medius, hip abduction. So abduction means away from the body, so your legs going out this way. Glute minimus, also hip abduction, hip medial rotation, and also assists in hip flexion. Hip flexion is bringing the leg up, flexing that hip. So today, cover some tips here for glute training. Fully shortened means your hip extended and arced around. So what I'm doing here is I'm bringing this leg back into extension and it arcs around also. So kind of this back rotation. So it's not just bringing your leg back, but back and around slightly. So you're really, even if you put your hand there when you do that, you'll feel that extra squeeze and that balling up of that glute. So that means it's fully shortened. Pulling the top of the glutes to the top of the femur. Now what I mean by this is, think of an RDL, Romanian deadlift. When we're coming back up, what we want to focus on is bringing the top of this glute down to the top of that femur. So squeezing that together. So kind of a posterior pelvic tilt. So what I'm doing here is rotating that pelvis. So I want to bring this back out. I want to bring the top of this glute down to the top of this femur, and that's going to shorten that muscle the most. Now that's what you want to think about, and that also works for a 45-degree hip extension or glute bridge, hip thrust, same concept. We want to bring that glute to the top of the femur. Also, squeezing the glutes in and pinching them. So when we're at the bottom of that RDL or 45-degree hip extension, we want to initiate with squeezing the glutes together. That's how the movement starts. So if I'm down the bottom, what I'm focusing on is squeezing those glutes together, and that's going to bring me up. Just like that. If you're thinking of anything else, it's going to be lower back. So a good way to minimize that low back coming into play is think of squeezing those glutes together to initiate the movement. Go over a few mistakes here that I see commonly. External foot rotation. RDLs, especially stiff leg deadlifts, glute bridges. You don't want your feet externally rotated out. What that's going to do is bring those hip external rotators more into play and take tension off those glutes. So keeping your feet neutral is the best thing. Mistake 2, allowing the spine to extend. Now, like I discussed here on our tips, when you don't initiate the movement with the glutes and come back up to the top, you have a tendency to pull with that lower back, and at the top, extending your low back. When you come up to the top, it's when the glutes stop moving. So anything beyond that is all lower back. So think of that next time you're doing an RDL or hip extension. Mistake 3, no knee bend. When you're doing that RDL, you want to have slight knee bend. That's going to help take out the hamstrings and put more on the glutes. Think of a stiff leg deadlift. That's more of a hamstring dominant movement because your knee is basically almost locked out. So to take out those hamstrings and focus a little bit more on those glutes, allow that soft knee. Mistake 4, focusing on abduction and external rotation. When you focus on this, you're bringing those hip external rotators that lie deep in your hip there to effectively kick in and take tension off the glutes, like I mentioned before. So when you focus on that, you're training those muscles more than the glutes. And this kind of ties into this 5th one here, doing frog pump and knee banded exercises. I've seen people in the gym do leg presses with bands around their knees, hip thrusts or glute bridges with bands around their knees. What this does is trains you to work those external rotators instead of the glutes. So what we want to do is focus less on that and focus on doing them properly. Proper hip banded, not hip banded, thrust or glute bridges, and proper leg presses, proper anything involving hip extension, RDLs. So limiting all this on the external rotators is going to be more efficient for your glutes. So there you have it, guys. Covered glutes here briefly. Like I said, any comments, questions, leave them down below. I'll be sure to get back to you. You can also check out slgfitness.com. I'll have a little bit more of a breakdown for you guys. Hope you enjoy the video. And until next time, guys, appreciate it.